London Reels. Way better idea. Sponsored by Xbrain. What's the first thing you do when you get into work in the morning? Check your email, right? Wrong. I took a tip from Tim Ferriss, former guest on London Reel, and I'm now following the information diet. You see, when someone sends you a message on Facebook, email, or even Twitter, it's their agenda for your time. And what you need to focus on is your agenda. So I stay off the email and the messaging systems until 12 noon every day. And instead, I write that proposal that I need to, I make that phone call, or worst case, I compose an email, but I do it offline. That way, you can get the most done with your day and not just continually be reactive to those who are demanding your time. That's today's Way Better Idea, brought to you by the folks at Xbrain. If you want to check out their Way Better protein powder, it's grass-fed, it's free range. You can get 15% off with the customer code LondonReal. Click on the link below or go to xbrain.co.uk. Peace!
What's really exciting about crowdfunding is for the first time in history, if we make this the product that it should be and the growth rates that we're experiencing right now, it will be, if we can get the right regulatory framework for this, for the first time in history, what gets funded reflects the values of society. And it's the people that are deciding who gets funded. It's not institutions, it's not venture capitalists, it's not rich people just because they've got the capital. It's society saying,
so it's not
we
banks
vote for this
deciding
with our
if they
money.
want to make a small loan.
Deciding.
Okay.
And this is what the big change is. And it's done in a transparent environment where, the current regulatory framework in the UK was built for the financial system that was not built on transparency. So therefore you need lots of regulations in order to make up for the lack of transparency.
But this is where I might disagree with you, Max. I don't think this is on the bank's radar. And I've got a bunch of companies that have been here on Silicon Reel that have disruptive technologies, TransferWise, transferring money at small percentages of money, a company called Stripe, which makes internet payments easier. And most of them say they're not even on the radar, as in they don't even know it's going to happen. Or like you said, Max, they're just going to buy you someday. So do you really think there's resistance in the parliament from the banks for something like Simon's company getting bigger?
Well,
at this point.
I'll give you an example. Why I think this could be politically a hot potato, because you have in this country an enormous grassroots activist community. Millions came out against the war. You've got demonstrations on the street all the time. I think the school teachers were protesting this week. So a lot of companies are mentioned often as really disliked by vast numbers of activists and the general public. For example, let's say a Nestle's, for example. You can crowdfund a competitor to Nestle's. You could crowdfund 15 competitors to Nestle's or Coca-Cola or some other company that people don't like. And people could own a piece of that company. And now they've got, instead of all the work that they've done over the years, creating this duopoly or oligopoly in the beverage space or the milk space or water space, suddenly there are competitors and people are going to support that because they own a piece of it. So, and then the politicians, of course, they're looking for votes, and if the voters own a piece of these companies that are now competing with these other companies, they're going to listen to that, and then the lobbying efforts of those other companies are going to be diminished.
Okay.
So it's a genuine threat. When you say that the user is going to fund in their image or what they want to see funded, imagine if you took millions of people in this country who were against a great example, obviously, is George Galloway. His film, The Killing of Tony Blair, raised £160,000 on a crowdfunding platform. That was from people who were completely felt ripped off by the Iraq War, who were out in the streets protesting. They were not listened to. They don't have a voice in Parliament. And yet that was the biggest crowdfunded documentary film in UK history, one of the biggest crowdfunded documentaries anywhere in the world. It got zero mention in the UK press, zero mention in any outlet in the mainstream, except for my show on RT. It's been completely ignored. Now, that's what I'm saying. There's the politics of this. If you're empowering people in this way, I think is what you're getting at, is not only are you funding, let's say, companies that you want to see emerge and doing interesting things, but politically there's an edge to this. Or am I overstating that case?
Okay, well, you've got the political. I'll give you my story. I used to work in investment banking. I used to raise finance for companies that wanted to go public. And, I left in 2006. had a bit of a journey in business, and then got into sustainable banking. Was really interested in what makes banking sustainable. And that involved lots of lobbying, it involved lots of conversation with MP, and it reached the point where eventually we decided, actually, business is a great vehicle, a great tool for actually getting your message out there in the world. And so we got into the crowdfunding space. And we wanted, our original vision was, it was co-founded with my wife, Bliss Dixon, and the original vision was, she got pissed off with me just banging my head against a brick wall, speaking to politicians, saying how banking should be, how investment banking should be, how retail banking should be, and just said, well, why don't we create our own bank? That was the original premise. And I thought, that's quite a hard thing to do. And we spent a lot of time changing the rules in the UK. And we've managed to get, the FCA, the Bank of England, the Treasury, all to change the rules on what's actually possible in the UK, because the political appetite to increase competition in banking is very large.
Well, let me ask you another part of this equation is that, you mentioned it a moment ago, the enormous subsidies that come from the government that go toward housing and property. Mm-hmm. I forget the number you just quoted, 40%.
40% of a bank's loan book goes to property, okay. 40 to financial speculation, and only about 13% to small to medium-sized enterprise.
See, that to me is an amazing number, and we know why that is, because George Osborne's Help to Buy scheme. They are opening taps to the Bank of England. They're offering people the chance to buy homes for 5% down, and they're re-pumping up the bubble that crashed 5 years ago as a way to buy votes for the next election, knowing full well that that's going to crash again, and there's going to be another huge dislocation in the economy, and it's a huge problem.
Are you completely against that, by the way?
Well, I'm saying that here you have an opportunity. Only 13% of the economy goes to small and medium enterprises. Crowdfunding can compete for those dollars that are going to go into housing speculation and housing bubbles, and into companies that are going to improves Britain's manufacturing, their export, and jobs, and wean themselves off. Property speculation in Britain is like oil to the OPEC.
Especially London.
Or like cheese in France. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how they define themselves, as property speculation. It's a curse of property speculation.
And it's hurting the small businesses, you're saying, because all the loan money is going.
It's hurting the whole economy. There's nothing sustainable about propping up an economy based upon inflating property prices.
It doesn't create jobs. It just creates asset values, which are then usually used as collateral to buy assets in other countries.
And this actually ties in with your original question, which is, do the banks care about us? Well, actually, I think the retail banks anyway, there's only two types of bank lending to small to medium-sized enterprise right now. It's one, the government forcing them, and second, good PR. That's all they're doing in bank lending. Now, I think they're actually seeing this as quite a refreshing break for them, that if we could serve the small to medium-sized enterprise sector, they can get back to the unsustainable stuff of pushing up property prices and serving financial speculation.
Okay, what's your biggest obstacle right now? I mean, this isn't a big business yet. I mean, you guys have raised £650,000 on your site.
We passed the 700 grand mark today.
Right. We had Cedars in, we had others in, and we're expecting this big push to happen. What's your biggest obstacle? Is it PR? Is it Parliament?
The biggest obstacle right now is that crowdfunding is still a niche. It's still not that known. I mean, it's starting to change. People are talking about it. It's misunderstood. But yeah, we've got a big job to educate businesses and let them know that there are alternatives to raising finance, and there's much better ways of raising finance than going to your bank who's not interested in lending to you anyway.
But we need a success story, probably. We need a big...
Yeah, it mirrors many times in the technology business. You have that period of adaptation, or adoption that goes on, chugs along for 2 or 3 years, and then the famous hockey stick move,
right,
where suddenly it just becomes ubiquitous.
Right.
And I think that's where crowdfunding
and
is.
If there was a big exit from a crowdfund, then it would be big. If we had the $1 billion company that some guy spent £10 on and became the Facebook millionaires, then people would maybe take notice.
Yeah, equity crowdfunding is nascentier. It's even further behind, let's say, rewards-based crowdfunding, because rewards-based crowdfunding has had the big successes. They've financed big things, and it's clearly well known, and there's a lot of different competition is heating up. But the equity side is really, I think, has a chance to do a lot of things besides just giving people another way to spend £10 or £100 or £1,000, but to change fundamentally some of the political dynamism.
This week on London Real, former MI5 intelligence officer turned whistleblower, Annie Machon.
What we're looking at now is a de facto police state. You know, all the laws are in place, they're just not being applied to most citizens yet. I think it's not a case of having anything to hide, it's having a case that I have a right to privacy, and I can't guarantee my government will uphold that right, therefore I need to take the steps to do it.
She talks NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden.
He would die for his country. He wants to try and improve the way his country operates within its own boundaries and protect its citizens. And we seem to forget and think that human rights are a luxury. They're not, they're fundamental, and privacy is one of them.
On Sunday, London Real presents Annie Machon, whistleblower.
So it's a very British mess, is the short answer.